And it looks like we just went live on Facebook. And so we are really excited for all of you to join us here. My name is Lakeland Hogan. I'm with Home Instead Senior Care, but we're also joined by RJ Mercedes from Hilarity for Charity. Hi, RJ. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm super excited. It's Friday. Woohoo, we made it through the work week. So really happy to have you with us to give us some more information on Hilarity for Charity, which we're going to dive into in just a little bit. And then we're also joined by Tracy. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing super great. Can't wait to get this thing going. I feel like we have so much good information to share, and hopefully it'll, people will find it helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tracy, you're a board member or on the review committee for Hilarity for Charity. You go through the applications. How many years have you been part of Hilarity now?
I've been with Hilarity since it started. So it's what, about 5-6 years, maybe?
5 years, yeah.
Like that, right? Is that right?
Time flies.
So I'm bored shortly after. I met Lauren and we got to talking. We were both in the same support group. So I was dealing with my dad who had Alzheimer's at the time. So it was nice to kind of meet this amazing program in its infancy and see it grow to everything it's become to today.
I bet that has been really neat to see. And I know that you provide such a valuable perspective, as do all of the review committee members, because they're all touched by Alzheimer's in some way. And so I think that that's so important. And so we're excited to hear more about your story in just a little bit. So if you're just joining us, this is our Caregiver Chats. We're to have you with us on this Friday morning. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. So if you're new to the chats, you can actually tag a friend if you think that somebody out there might be interested in learning about today's topic, which is respite care. So we're going to be talking about that in a little more detail today. So you can tag them by commenting their name. You do the @ symbol and then comment their name in the comment section below. So feel free to do that. And we're also going to be taking your questions live. So we want you to type those questions in at any time. I always like to say there's no such thing as a silly question. This is a safe space of caregivers here that are here to support you. So we want to hear from you. We're going to get started again here in just a few minutes, but if you're joining us, we'd love to have you give us like a thumbs up or the little wave emoji. We want to make sure that you're listening, that you're tuned in. We're so excited to have you with us. So feel free to comment those in the question box below or the comments box below on this Facebook Live. And again, we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hopefully everyone has something fun planned for their weekend. Is it nice and sunny in California, Tracy?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm so jealous.
I feel like a weather forecaster, but we're expecting a high of 80 degrees this weekend. So it'll be perfect beach weather.
Oh my goodness. When can I move there? Here in Nebraska, we have a cloudy and a little drizzle headed our way.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain over the past week and everyone's kind of freaking out because it's like, oh my gosh, there's water falling from the sky. What do? How do we drive? So now that the sun's coming out, we're all starting to feel a little bit more like ourselves. So
good. Sunshine can do a world of good. And RJ, you're in New York, is that right? New York City?
In Connecticut, yeah.
Oh, Connecticut, so on the East Coast. So we're really spanning the coast here on this chat.
I know, yeah.
I'm in the dead center of the United States.
I'd love to hear where everybody else is tuning in from. So
yeah,
add that in the comments too. Yeah,
absolutely. Let us know where you're based out of. I know that we have people that are engaged in both the Hilarity for Charity Facebook page and the Remember for Alzheimer's Facebook page that really span the U.S. If you're even from a different country than the United States, we want to know that too. I think it's neat when we have an international caregiving group that comes together and shares tips and advice. So let us know where you're coming from.
And what the weather's like.
Yeah, we want to know what it's like where you are too. Hopefully it's a nice weekend ahead for so many people. All right, well, I think if you guys are ready, we can go ahead and get started. I hope this has given people enough time to log in and join us. So if you guys are ready, I think this is a good time to start talking about respite today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Ready.
So again, if you're just joining us, my name is Lakeland Hogan. I am Home Instead Senior Care's gerontologist and caregiver advocate. And these caregiver chats are brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care. We're a network of in-home care companies, but we really want to support family caregivers and answer your questions live and bring you really important information and resources. So that's really the purpose of these caregiver chats. And we're so excited to talk today about respite care. And so I am joined by RJ Mercedes from Hilarity for Charity. Hi, RJ. Thanks again so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Lakeland.
And then we're also joined by Tracy Raya. I always mess that up. Tracy, how do you say your last name? I apologize.
It's Reyes, no worries.
Reyes.
Yes.
Thank you. And you are a part of Hilarity for Charity, and you help to review the applications that come in for the grant program. And we were just talking about how you've been with the program since it started about 6 years ago. So I know that they're lucky to have you, and you will be able to share a wealth of information with us about the grant program today.
So excited to be here.
Good, good. All right. So first, let's start by talking about respite care. Some people may or may not have heard the term before, and really why it is important is because caregivers, especially those caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of emotional ups and downs. It can be physically draining, mentally draining, financially draining. And so really there's a high risk for caregivers to experience burnout, which is, anxiety, stress, depression. They're just really caught up in the day-to-day activities and feel like they really need a break. And so that's where respite care can come in, and that's why it's so important. So respite is taking a break away from the caregiving situation to recharge, refresh, engage in self-care, because we know that it's really important to take care of yourself so you can continue to take care of your loved ones. But we know that that's easier said than done a lot of times. And so that's why we're here talking to you today about respite, the benefits, and then hopefully offer you some resources and information on where you can go to find respite. But I thought, Tracy, would you mind just talking a little bit more about the benefits of respite? Maybe speak from your own experience, and then talk maybe about the program, the grant program, and the benefits of the respite you've seen in the caregivers that Hilarity for Charity serves.
Definitely. To echo a lot of what you've said, respite is so important regardless of your age. So when I was 21 when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Once I graduated college, I moved back home to help my family take care of my dad because we didn't have anyone available to help us. We were all working full time. My dad oftentimes had to stay at home by himself, which was really unsafe. But like I said, we felt like we had no other option. So we modified things here and there. You take out the knobs from the oven so he doesn't turn the oven on. We covered the mirrors in the house. We wouldn't get into fights with his own reflection. We double bolted the doors. And through all that caregiving, we found that it was so hard to find respite care. And the minutes that we were able to get it, we appreciated it so much, either giving each other breaks. And when we talk about respite care, we're not saying, you go out for a week-long vacation or you go out and get even an hour massage. Respite and relief can come from just having an uninterrupted shower, uninterrupted time in the restroom, just time where you can take a minute, take 5 minutes and care for yourself. But we all know how challenging that is when you have someone that you're constantly on alert for. Even when you're sleeping at night, it's not a relaxful, it's not a restful sleep because you're kind of sleeping with one eye open, listening out to what's going on with your loved one. Or if it's too quiet, you're wondering what's going on with my loved one. It's too quiet. So we're constantly working. We're constantly finding that emotional toll, that physical toll, and sometimes that financial strain as well as having to care for a loved one. So we really want to encourage the use of respite. But like you said, it's hard to find when you don't have, the resources for it. So that's where we step in as Hilarity for Charity. We are offering, through our application process, grants to offer respite and relief for our caregivers.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And thanks for sharing your personal story. I'm sure a lot of those listening can relate to various aspects of your family's caregiving situation. Those restless nights, that little time that you can take away every day. As you mentioned, it doesn't have to be getting away for an entire week. It could be for a few minutes or a couple hours, that sort of thing. And so sometimes people, as you mentioned, they don't maybe know where to find respite care. Some people automatically think that they have to hire someone or take their loved one somewhere. So I thought I'd just give a couple examples of various types of respite. And the first one is just utilizing those in your kind of social network. So having a family member or friend or neighbor come over for an hour, a couple hours to be with your loved one so you can take that shower or take a nap uninterrupted, or even go to your own doctor's appointments. We know that oftentimes caregivers put their health on the back burner. So just to get away for a little self-care. So you can tap into those, again, family members, friends, neighbors. If you're part of a faith community, a lot of those organizations have volunteer programs. And also your local area agency on aging is likely to have a respite program. So it might be a respite program where they send people into the home or offer an option for you to take your loved one to a facility while maybe you go on a vacation, or if you have a hospital stay as a caregiver, you can apply for those kind of respite resources. And then also you could hire an in-home care company like Home Instead, professionally trained caregivers to come into the home. But there's also adult day centers where you can take your loved one maybe while you are working or for an afternoon while you take care of yourself, run some errands, get the household in order, that sort of thing. And then of course, there are grant programs like Hilarity for charity. So once you start to think about your options for respite, there are definitely options out there. So it just takes maybe a little research, a little investigation. But RG, would you mind sharing with us about the Hilarity for Charity grant program so that people who are tuning in can get a better feel for the program and what it offers?
Sure thing. So, hey, everybody. Thanks again to Home Instead for inviting us on to chat with you all. So as Lakeland said, I am RJ Mercedi, the Director of Programming and Development at Hilarity for Charity. Just quickly want to share kind of how this all came about. So when Lauren Miller-Rogan and her family were thrown into the devastation of Alzheimer's, they realized that there was a really common story. And we kind of heard it a little bit, but families were burning the candles at both ends to survive. They're providing amazing round-the-clock care to keep their loved one at home. But in order to do so, they had to leave work, postpone school, ignore medical appointments, along with many other sacrifices, so that all of their attention would go to their loved one with Alzheimer's. Many did not qualify for any social benefits, so they really had nowhere to turn to for help. And to make matters worse, their own health and well-being was being ignored. So in October 2014, the Hilarity for Charity Care Grant Program was established. And as Tracy mentioned, it was to provide immediate respite care for family caregivers contending with Alzheimer's and other dementias. So we were and continue to be the support line for over 15 million Americans, providing unpaid care to a person living with Alzheimer's or another dementia. It's a scary number, but we're here to help. So as we were putting this program together, we couldn't have asked for a better partner, which is Home Instead Senior Care, leader in providing home care. So for anyone interested in applying, we encourage you to go to our website, www.helpforalzheimersfamilies.com, so you can learn more and apply through our online platform. I should note that in order to be eligible for a grant, your loved one must be professionally diagnosed with Alzheimer's or another dementia. They must live at home in the United States or Canada, and you must face significant financial and emotional hardships due to your role as a caregiver. So just lastly, the program started in October 2014. I'm proud to say that we've awarded almost 250,000 hours of care to families in just about every state, and even in some families in Canada. And even to some of our local Home Instead offices that have generously donated hours, we've been able to stretch this even further. So we know that while there isn't currently a cure, that we will continue to provide this important care to families.
Thank you so much, RJ, for sharing that. And that's an awesome number. Over 200,000 hours, I think that's what you said, of care that's been provided through this grant program. I know that those hours have been put to great use. Tracy, since you're so close to kind of that application process, that's a big part of this grant program. You do have to apply. So would you mind just talking a little bit about the grant program application so that families kind of get a feel for what is to be expected? That would be awesome.
For sure. So when you apply for a grant program, you'll submit this application. So we're going to ask you questions about what your home life is like, who's living with you, who are some people that are, like a lot of the resources that you mentioned, who are you reaching out to for help? What's the day-to-day like? We're going to get real personal. We're going to get to know you really, really well. That's our hope. All of us on the review board have had that personal experience with Alzheimer's. We've all been there. We all know we can empathize with you. We know, the nights that you're going without sleep, the weeks that you're going on without sleep. So when we ask, what's it like? We want to hear more than, it's rough, because like I said, we've been there. We know it's rough. So we want you to be able to paint us a picture, instead of saying, for example, I haven't slept in 4 days. Give us more insight about what's going on. The minute I lie in bed, I hear my dad trying to make coffee at 3 in the morning. So I have to get up and let him know that, no, it's not, the middle of the day. It's not coffee time. It's time to go back to bed, and that helps us get a better understanding of what life is like for you specifically. Oftentimes we've had a lot of applicants say, it was really hard to get through the application because for this moment, I had to stop and really evaluate what I'm doing, and almost, cathartic for some people, because they're sitting there and they're physically looking and verbalizing what it is that they're going through. And sometimes giving them that perspective of, wow, I'm doing a lot. I have ignored doctor's appointments. I haven't gone to the store to get groceries. I haven't even stepped outside the house. So it really gives people a perspective and the opportunity to step back and look at the amazing work they're doing as caregivers, but also the significant burnout that they're experiencing. So once we get through those questions and you let us know what you're going through, you'll submit your application. You'll receive an email saying that we've received your application, that it was successfully submitted. And then their applications get reviewed by monthly. So the review board would then receive your application, will read through them, and then within 60 days, you'll get a response as to whether or not you've received a grant.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for walking us through that process. I hope that everyone that is listening can find that to be helpful. Just knowing that, the application might take a little time, but it's because we really want to get to know what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. And then once it's reviewed, if your grant is awarded, or if you're awarded a grant, I just thought I'd give people a little insight as to what happens after that. So if you are awarded a grant, we will connect you with your local home instead office, and they'll come out and they'll do a care consultation. So they'll really get to know your situation in greater detail, find out the needs of your loved one and the needs of the caregiver, and work together with the family to create a schedule that fits within the grant that has been awarded. So, and then once that schedule is put together, then they'll send a professionally trained caregiver who has our Alzheimer's and dementia care training to the home to provide care, which is important because we want our caregivers to understand Alzheimer's and dementia so that they can provide the best care possible. So that's kind of how the whole process works. And we really just love this partnership at Home Instead with Hilarity for Charity. It's been a great way for us to serve that need that RJ mentioned earlier. There's so many family caregivers out there that are needing resources and support. And so this is one way that families can find that respite, is through the grant program. But then Hilarity also has some great resources. I know that they kind of do chats like this, or I think you guys have an online support group. Is that right, RJ? Is Hilarity still?
We do. Yep. We run some online support groups. So you can go to our website, hilarityforcharity.org, to learn a little bit more about those programs and to sign up. They're all free, so we want to get as many people in as we can.
Awesome. And Tracy, you had mentioned that you were part of a support group, and that's really how you got introduced to Miller Rogan, and the whole Hilarity for Charity program. So can you just speak for a second about, what that support group meant to you, and why it's beneficial for caregivers to be in that community, which can be, from what I've heard from caregivers, to be really helpful.
Yeah, the disease itself can be so isolating because, as we mentioned, you're struggling to find time for yourself. So sometimes you're not even connecting with friends or family because you're so overwhelmed. So being able to go to a support group, our support group was for young adults with parents who have Alzheimer's, and being able to feel that, I wasn't alone. I was 21, 22 at the time as my dad's disease was progressing. And I couldn't find anyone that understood, because when you talk to someone about Alzheimer's, they're like, oh yeah, people, they just forget things. And they're running around looking for their keys, but there's so much more to that. And that's what I always would tell people, it's not just forgetting, it's, the changes in the personality. It's, unfortunately in my case, it was my dad being aggressive, something that he never was. He was a completely different person, and having to worry about him wandering, you can't keep your eyes off of them because they might go out the door and the ambulance will bring them back 12 hours later because they're on the wrong side of town. I mentioned having to cover all the mirrors in our house because my dad would see his reflections during the times when he would hallucinate and think that it was somebody else. So it's being able to share these stories, one, not feel embarrassed and having to talk about, my dad's kind of issues that we were all going with people that knew what was going on. Even just to have someone tell you, I get it, and it sucks, just plain and simple, not trying to understand, not trying to sympathize, but just really empathizing, because I know that that's what they're going through. And through this respite program, we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from some of our grant recipients that I'd like to share.
Oh yes, please do. That would be awesome.
So one of our recipients, Beverly, emailed us to say, with the respite that I was given, I was able to escape from the stress and demands that are put upon you for just a few hours, and that was truly life-saving. Another one from Sue said, because of the generous gift of the respite care, I was able to leave and care for my loved one in a manner that he deserved and I wanted to supply. If it hadn't been for this grant, I probably would have crashed both physically and emotionally. And then this last one, I have one more. My husband passed away at the age of 74. I will always be so grateful and appreciative to Hilarity for Charity for allowing me some time to rejuvenate and be stronger for him in the last day with us. And I think one of the, another one that I read that really kind of hit home was, the best part of being awarded the grant is that I no longer feel alone and invisible. Someone sees me and cares. And I think that's just really exemplifies what we want to do. We want people to feel that we care and we see you, we know what it's like.
Tracy, thank you so much for sharing those. Oh, my heart goes out to each one of those caregivers, but what a true testament to the program and all of the benefits that respite care has for these caregivers who, like many of them said, felt like they were at their wits' end. And so this respite really gave them the opportunity, or I guess the encouragement, to keep going. So thank you for sharing those testimonies. Okay, so I think that we have some time left to take some questions from those that are listening, tuning in. We have a lot of questions flooding in. So again, if you have a question out there, please comment it below. We have gotten some great questions in so far, and we'll hopefully have time to get to as many of them as possible. And if we can't get to them on this Facebook Live, we will make sure to respond to you in the comment section. So at any time, feel free to shoot us your questions because we do want to answer them. So the first one comes from Dennis. He said that he submitted a request to Hilarity for Charity a few months ago, but his application was denied. He's asking, do I have to submit a new application each time in the future that I reapply? And what are the guidelines for getting approved? So Dennis, that's a great question. RJ, do you want to answer the fact or the part of the question about, does he have to submit a new grant application every single time?
Sure. So Dennis, thank you for submitting your application. Unfortunately, we are not able to award every single application that comes through. So we do hope that you'll consider applying again. We just transitioned to this online application. So yes, right now, each time that you want to submit, you'll submit a new application. And as your situation changes, be sure to update and really give us a clear picture of what's happening in your home, what's happening to your loved one, and what's happening to your well-being, so that the review committee can make that determination of the highest need out there. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our review committee members like Tracy for their tireless work. It is so difficult to do what they do, and they do it all, again, coming from a place that they were or are a caregiver to a loved one with Alzheimer's, but do it with respect the process and integrity, and really bring that empathy into their review. So thank you.
We're looking at every single application that comes to us. We're reading your story. That's not some machine that's out there with some algorithm determining who gets the awards. They're not given out at random. So Dennis, I would thank you for submitting your application. And my recommendation was give us those stories. Talk about that one challenging, I'm sure it's not just one challenging day, but those challenging times that you've had. Give us detail. Let us see what it's like. Let us be that fly on your wall, for your hard times, so we can really understand and see what's going on.
Thank you both for your insight on Dennis's question, and we hope, Dennis, that you find that helpful. Our next question comes from Justine. Hi, Justine. She kind of shares her story and ends with a question. She says that she's been taking care of her mother for almost 2 years. On top of that, she has a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old. She really wants to go on vacation this summer. She's asking, are there types of respite programs that would allow her to leave while on vacation and then be with her mom again when she returns? She says she's really been neglecting herself since taking on this greater responsibility, but she wouldn't change it for the world. And so, Justine, that is a great question. And you were part of that classic sandwich generation. You're caring for your parents, but also your own children. And so I can definitely understand how you would want to get away this summer with your kiddos to take a summer vacation. Those are memories that I'm sure your kids will remember forever. And from my point of view, I have heard of respite programs where they will provide respite for a certain period of time. So you might be able to take your loved one to a community setting for maybe a week, 5 days, however long. And so I would check around with the different programs in your community. You might want to start with your local area agency on aging, and we'll put the website where you can find that below. The website is n4a.org, so we'll type that in the comments below, but that's a great place to start. A lot of those agencies have a respite program, but then, just calling around to different facilities to see if they offer short-term respite stays. That's kind of, I think, the terminology that's most commonly used. Tracy, do you have any other suggestions for Justine on this question?
If you find that maybe a longer vacation is something that's not feasible, think about shorter outings. Maybe, having mini vacations working up, because it's hard. I can't imagine what it would be like to have to take care of kids on top of taking care of your loved one. But I think the suggestions you offered are great. The unfortunate thing is that it does take a bit of legwork to get all this information out, because a lot of information is not going to be kind of readily available. So definitely tapping into those resources.
Thanks for those added suggestions, Tracy. You make a great point. Sometimes we think, oh, it'd be great to get away for an entire week, but maybe you make a summer bucket list with your kids of the top 3 things they want to do locally, and maybe you can find some a local respite care provider that can come just for a day or half a day, so you can get out with your kids to do those fun summer activities. And so that way, if you can't get away for a whole week, at least you're still getting those times, those fun times in over the summer months. So Justine, thank you so much for your question. That was a good one. Okay, so we have a question from Olivia. She says, in regards to the Hilarity for Charity grant, I have a neighbor that's been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's. She says, I know his only child is currently taking care of him while she has family of her own to take care of too. Can I nominate them for the grant, or does the grant application have to be directly from the family member? So I think that's a great question, Olivia. RJ, can you maybe speak to this? Does the caregiver themselves have to apply, or can someone nominate a caregiver?
Yeah, great question, Olivia. So typically we receive the application from the caregiver. That way, if there's additional questions, or even just if we award, that we have that direct line with the person that will be receiving the respite relief. So I would say, I would sit down with your neighbor and share the link. Hopefully it came through on comments if it hasn't yet, to the application, so that they can do it. Maybe you can work with them to complete the application together. That way we have the person that we'll be connecting with, which is the caregiver in a local home instead office, so that they can make sure they can get going on those hours right away.
Thank you so much for answering that question, RJ. Okay, so I want to get to a few more questions. We have one from Mark. He's just kind of sharing his story, looking for some encouragement, but he says he's caring for his 84-year-old mother who can barely take care of herself, and he really has no other family to help. And so Mark, our heart goes out to you. This is probably, Tracy, is this kind of a similar situation that you guys see in the grant applications? I'm sure that Mark is not alone in his situation with his mom.
Mark, you're definitely not alone in your situation, but I know that it feels like you are. Unfortunately, that is a very common story we hear in our application process. There are many people out there that really, they have nowhere to turn. They're, only child, or all the family lives in a different state. Maybe they live in a place where there aren't, a lot of options or daycares nearby for adults. So unfortunately, it is common. We do hear that a lot. And that feeling of, what do I do? Or I don't think I can go another day. We always talk about how with Alzheimer's, your level of capacity continues to grow. I always remember thinking like, oh my gosh, the minute my dad forgets who I am, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I get to that limit, and then it's like, oh my gosh, the minute that this happens, so your threshold kind of continues to rise because you don't know how much more you can take. So Mark, I'm feeling for you.
Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. I like that kind of analogy that you just shared of I've heard caregivers talk about this a lot, is they didn't know that they had the capacity to do all of these caregiving activities. They didn't think they could handle it emotionally and somehow find the strength to go on. And so I think that's why, again, respite can be so helpful. It provides that break so people can be recharged and continue to go on caring for their loved one. So thanks for sharing that, Tracy.
You'd be a great applicant. I know, strongly encourage you to apply to our respite program.
Yes, and we'll make sure to put that link to the grant application in the comments below. So be sure to look down there for the link as to where you can apply. So we just have two more quick questions. It looks like Anne has wrote in sharing a little bit about her story, and I think she brings up a good question. So Anne says that when she was caring for her mother, they had very little options. There was no in-home respite that they could find. They lived in a very small town. She says that's why she's trying to now help other families find resources. And so she said, thanks to all of us for hosting this chat today. But I think that she brings up a great point that, a lot of times in more rural, small town communities, there's not a lot of resources. There might not even be a home instead office. So if somebody did get this grant, there might be thinking, I'm not even going to apply because there's no resources in my community. So RJ, Tracy, do either of you have information? So if somebody applied and they got awarded a grant and there's not a home instead office, can they still use those hours?
They definitely can. So we have a great team working alongside us that will help you get those other hours in one way or another. So we understand that if there isn't a home instead office in where you live, because you do live in a rural community, a rural area, that we have people out on the field working to find out what other services we can provide, because you are entitled to those hours as a grant recipient. So definitely your location, none of that should stop you from applying to the grant program.
Awesome.
And I'll just mention too that we kind of touched on it before, the online support groups, we intentionally do those because folks can't get out of the house, or the local support group is an hour drive, or there's just so many reasons why it's hard to be able to attend some in-person ones. So we've been running these online support groups so that people can be connecting with folks all around the country from their home, so that it works a little bit better with their schedules. And we're going to be kicking off a virtual book club in May. So we're trying to build out some of those other resources in addition to the grants that we have.
Thank you so much for that great information. And I'm glad that you shared about the support groups and the upcoming book club. Those are online. The communities that are being built online amongst family caregivers can be so helpful and powerful. And those online resources that Hilarity is providing, our Help for Alzheimer's Families.com website that Home Instead has created also has a lot of great tips and tools, resources, an app you can download for free that puts tips right at your fingers in those times of challenging situations or stressful situations. Those are all things that can help, at a moment's notice. So thank you so much, RJ, for sharing those online resources. I think that we're kind of out of time today. We had some other questions that came in, but we're going to make sure we answer those in the comments section. We thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been such a great chat. I know we could probably talk for hours about this grant program and sharing stories, but this has been a great way to kick off my Friday, and I hope you all have really enjoyed it. So Tracy, thank you so much for spending your Friday morning with us.
Everyone that tuned in, we're so appreciative, and I send you all virtual hugs because I know what it's like, and just hang in there. I mean, you have really no other option but just to take it one day at a time, because your capacity and your threshold level of what you can do is amazing, and you'll surprise yourself.
Thanks so much, Tracy, for those last words of inspiration. And RJ, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about the grant program and sharing more about the application. We're so thankful that you are here with us.
Of course, yeah. Thank you to you, Lakeland and Home Instead, for your guidance and providing the highest level of care for our caregivers so that they can take that respite relief that they need. And again, just to our review committees for their tremendously hard work that they do each month to make these grants possible. So thank you all, and we hope to continue to hear from you.
Well, thank you. We love the partnership between Home Instead and Hilarity, and it's truly an honor to serve caregivers and individuals living with Alzheimer's and dementia in their homes or wherever they're living, to partner for providing this really important respite care. So again, we thank you all for tuning in today for today's Caregiver Chat. We hope that you'll join us. We like to do these each month. So we did record this, and we'll post it back out on our Facebook page, and Hilarity will probably share it on theirs too. And so you can go back and re-listen to parts or share it out to those who couldn't make it for the live event today. But with that, we'll say goodbye to you and let you enjoy your weekend. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.